There are seasons in life when everything goes quiet. No applause, no direction, just the stillness, like standing alone in a cathedral after the choir is gone. And in that silence, we often begin to question, was I meant for more? Or have I already lost my way? But what if that silence isn't absence, but arrangement? What if every stumble, every closed door, every awkward, aching failure was never punishment, but precision? You see, the universe is not clumsy. It doesn't misplace people. There is choreography in the chaos, rhythm in the ruin. The detours you've hated, the flaws you've hidden, the failures you've mourned, they've been composing something sacred all along. We are not here to be perfect. We are here to be real, to crack open, to fall down, to rise differently. Flawed is how light gets in. Failed is how truth gets out. Fearless is simply the moment you choose to stay awake, to trust that what's breaking you is also building you. So if you find yourself in the quiet tonight, remember, you are not off track. You are on time. And your journey in all its mess and mystery is the masterpiece being written in stars. Let's talk about flaws, not the ones you photoshopped, hidden, or apologized for in a job interview. I mean the real ones, the messy, jagged, imperfect edges that make you feel too much, too little, too different, too wrong. We live in a world obsessed with polish, with curated feeds, filtered lives, and this ridiculous expectation that we should always have it together, always performing, always smiling. But here's the truth. The pursuit of perfection is the fastest way to lose your soul. Because while you're busy pretending to be something you're not, life is passing you by, and the real you, the one with the doubts and the dents and the dreams that haven't quite landed, that version is being silenced. But here's the secret the world won't tell you. Those very flaws you've been taught to hide, they're the doorway, the exact place where something deeper, something richer begins. See, we think flaws are evidence that we're broken, that something's wrong with us. But what if they're actually sacred? What if they're not signs of failure, but of formation? Because you don't grow in the clean, easy parts of life. You grow in the tension, the uncertainty, the moments where you don't know who you are or where this is going. And maybe that's the point. Every time you feel like you don't measure up, like you're falling short of some invisible standard, it's actually an invitation to drop the performance, to stop chasing the version of you that pleases everyone else, and instead to return to the version that's true. That's where self-trust begins. You know, I used to think if I could just fix all my flaws, I'd finally be worthy of love or success or peace. But that's not how it works. Because what makes you lovable isn't your shine, it's your shape. The curves and cracks and unexpected contours that tell the story of where you've been and what you've survived. The truth is, you can't be fully alive if you're busy being someone else's idea of perfect. You weren't designed to blend in. You were designed to be whole. And wholeness doesn't come from fixing yourself. It comes from accepting yourself exactly as you are, flaws and all. And I get it. This is hard, especially when you've grown up in systems that told you being a good meant being quiet, being agreeable, being neat. Or when you failed in front of people who only knew how to measure you by your mistakes. That stuff runs deep. And the conditioning doesn't just go away because you've read a self-help book or listened to a podcast. But here's what has helped: curiosity, self-compassion. Choosing moment by moment to believe that maybe, just maybe, you're not broken after all. I want you to consider something radical. What if your flaws are the fingerprints of your becoming? What if they aren't obstacles to who you're supposed to be, but actual proof that you're on the right path? We spend so much energy trying to polish the rough parts of ourselves. But the truth is, those rough parts are where your depth lives. They're where your empathy comes from. Your ability to connect, to lead, to heal. You can't touch someone else's pain if you've never sat with your own. The people who change the world aren't the ones who hide their flaws. They're the ones who use them. Your vulnerability, that's your power. Your awkwardness, that's your authenticity. Your messiness, that's the evidence that you're in it, that you're not bypassing the work. You're doing it. Because real growth doesn't happen in a highlight reel. It happens in the unfiltered, unedited moments when you're tired, when you're uncertain, when you show up anyway. And let me tell you, when you stop trying to be flawless and you start showing up flawed and fully human, something beautiful happens. People recognize themselves in you. They exhale, they feel seen. And more importantly, you begin to feel real again. So if you're sitting there thinking your flaws disqualify you from your purpose, I want you to hear this loud and clear. Your flaws don't make you less. They make you true. And there's nothing more powerful than a human being who has stopped running from themselves. Right, Satis? Let's talk about failure. Not the kind you laugh off in small talk. I'm talking about the deep kind, the gut punch, heart-splitting, what now? Kind. The kind that leaves you breathless in the shower, staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m., questioning everything.
Yeah, that kind.
We all hit that wall at some point. A relationship falls apart. A dream doesn't land. A plan you were so sure about just disappears. And in that moment, failure doesn't feel like a learning opportunity. It feels like proof. Proof that you're not enough. That you've missed your chance. That maybe you should have never tried at all. But here's the thing no one tells you. Failure is not proof of your inadequacy. It's the beginning of your initiation. It's not a detour. It is the path. We've been raised to fear failure like it's a verdict. Like it means the door is closed and the world has moved on without us. Truth, but that's a lie. The truth, every person you admire, every story you've ever found inspiring, it started with failure. Public failure, private failure, some kind of fall that stripped them bare and forced them to decide who they were without the title, the image, the plan. Because that's what failure does. It takes away the layers, the masks, the illusion of control. And yeah, it hurts. But in that stripping away, something extraordinary happens. You begin to hear your own voice again. Not the loud one that's been performing for approval, but the quiet one. The voice that's been waiting to lead you somewhere deeper. We confuse success with arrival. Like if we just get there, everything will finally click. But failure is the opposite of arrival. It's the opening. It asks you, are you still in this, even when it's not working? Do you still believe in who you are, even when the world doesn't clap? Most people back away when failure shows up, but the ones who grow, the ones who build lives that actually mean something, they lean in. They stop asking, why me? And start asking, what is this here to teach me? Because failure is never just about what didn't work. It's about who you're becoming in the process. And the truth is, you learn more in the mess than you ever will in the moment of applause. I remember a time when something I'd worked so hard for, something I thought I needed, completely collapsed. I failed. Publicly, painfully. And for a while, I was so embarrassed, I wanted to disappear. I thought, that's it, I'm done. But that failure, it was the doorway. Because in that emptiness, I had to redefine what success actually meant. I had to rebuild not just the plan, but myself. Failure doesn't mean you're off your path. Sometimes it is the path. The stripping away of what's not meant for you so that what is meant can finally grow. And listen, I know how tempting it is to rush through failure, to slap a lesson on it, call it growth, and move on. But real transformation doesn't come from rushing. It comes from sitting in the ashes. From asking hard questions, from letting your ego crack just enough for the truth to get in. You have to feel it to free it. You have to grieve the version of yourself that didn't make. And here's the paradox. The deeper you've fallen, the more capacity you have to rise. Because failure expands you. It stretches your humility, your empathy, your grit. It builds a kind of strength that can't be bought or borrowed. You earn it in the quiet, in the climb back. So if you're in that space right now, if you feel like everything's fallen apart and you're questioning your worth, let me tell you something. You are not your lowest moment. You are not the thing that didn't work. You're the one still here, showing up, asking, well, what's next? And that's power. You haven't failed. You've been forged. So let the pieces fall. Let the plan burn down. What's meant for you doesn't fear your failure. It waits for your rebirth. Because the real story, the one that's going to matter most, is not about how you succeeded. It's about how you refuse to quit. Let's talk about waiting, those in-between seasons, where nothing's happening, no calls are coming in, no doors are opening, and it feels like the whole world is moving forward without you. We don't talk enough about that space. Not the chaos of failure, not the triumph of success, but that heavy, quiet pause in the middle of that moment when you've done everything you can, and still, it's just still. And you start asking questions. Did I miss it? Am I too late? Is this even worth it anymore? There's a kind of pain in the waiting that people underestimate. It's subtle, but it's sharp. You wake up every day trying to stay hopeful while everything in you is screaming, why hasn't it happened yet? And in a world obsessed with speed, with results, with constant motion, that stillness can feel like failure. But here's the truth. Just because it's quiet doesn't mean nothing's happening. Just because you can't see the progress doesn't mean you're stuck. Sometimes the silence is not a stop sign. It's a setup. We think success should look like forward motion. Step 1, step 2, step 3. But life doesn't work in straight lines. It moves in cycles, like the seasons, like breath. There are moments of momentum, and then there are moments of deep, unseen transformation. You don't doubt a seed just because it's buried. You don't dig it up every day to make sure it's growing. You trust the process. You trust the soil. And you've got to do the same with yourself. That season where it feels like nothing's moving, that might be the exact season where everything is, because it's in the quiet that you meet yourself. It's in the stillness where you start asking the deeper questions. Not what do I want to achieve, but who am I becoming? Not how do I get there faster, but what is life trying to teach me here? Yeah. And I'll be honest, this kind of growth isn't sexy. It's not Instagrammable. It's not applause-worthy. It's unlearning. It's crying in the car. It's making hard decisions with no guarantees. But it's real. It's sacred and it's necessary. Because if everything showed up the moment you asked for it, without the delay, without the stretching, without the waiting, you wouldn't be ready. You'd sabotage the opportunity. You'd misread the blessing. You'd mistake timing for talent. That delay, that space between the dream and the arrival, that's where alignment happens. That's where you figure out if your goal is really yours or someone else's idea of success. That's where you start building the internal foundation that can hold the weight of what's coming. We think waiting means we're falling behind. But sometimes waiting is how you catch up to who you really are. You can't microwave purpose. You can't fast track wisdom. Some things take time. And that's not a punishment. That's protection. That's preparation. Because listen, there's a version of you that's going to walk into the next chapter with clarity, with strength, with boundaries, with boldness. And that version, she doesn't come from everything going right. She comes from everything going silent. So if you're in a quiet season right now, if things feel stalled, if life feels slow, I want you to stop seeing that as failure. I want you to stop rushing to affix it. And instead, I want you to get curious. What's the stillness asking you to notice? What part of you is being reshaped while no one's watching? What dream is being redefined beneath the surface of all that waiting? Because here's the paradox. Your life isn't on pause. It's playing a softer note, a deeper note, one that most people miss because they're too busy trying to skip ahead. But you're different. You're paying attention. You're learning to listen, not just to the noise of ambition, but to the silence of becoming. And that silence, it's not empty. It's full of everything you need to step into what's next. So don't rush the quiet. Don't resist the pause. Sometimes the delay isn't holding you back. It's holding space for your arrival. And when it's time, you won't be late. You'll be right on time. Let's talk about fear. Not the fear of spiders or heights or flying. Those are easy to name. I'm talking about the fear that lives underneath your skin, the one that shows up just before you speak up, just before you say yes, just before you admit what you really want. That kind of fear is slippery. It hides in logic. It disguises itself as just being practical. It sounds like, what if it doesn't work? Or what if I'm not good enough? Or what will they think? But here's the truth. The presence of fear doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It often means you're about to do something that matters. We get this idea that fearless people don't feel fear. Like bravery is some kind of personality trait. You either have it or you don't. But that's not how it works. It's about feeling everything and moving anyway. It's about letting the fear ride in the car with you, but not giving it the wheel. Because fear will always have something to say, always, especially when you're about to expand, especially when you're getting closer to the truth, especially when you're stepping into a space you've never stood in before. Of course it speaks up. That's its job. But your job is to listen and then lead. You don't need to conquer your fear. You need to get curious about it. What's it actually protecting? What old version of you is it trying to keep safe? Because if you dig a little deeper, most fear isn't rooted in what's happening now. It's rooted in a memory, a wound, a past failure, a rejection you still carry. And every time you get close to something new, that old fear says, it's trying to keep you from pain, not from purpose. But you have to remind yourself, you're not that version of you anymore. You're not the scared kid in the classroom. You're not the person who got rejected 5 years ago. You're not the person who didn't know how to handle it. You've lived. You've grown. You've been through enough to know that fear doesn't get to call the shots. So the next time it shows up, and it will, don't run from it. Invite it in. Let it speak. And then remind it, I've got this now. Because here's something you might not have realized yet. Every time you felt fear and moved anyway, every time you said yes while your hands were shaking, every time you stood up, even though your voice cracked, you were rewiring your story. You were creating new evidence. Evidence that says, I can do hard things. I can be scared and show up. I don't have to wait until I feel ready. Do you know how powerful that is? When you stop needing to feel brave before you act and you just act, that's when everything shifts. Because courage doesn't come first. It comes after you move, after you risk, after you choose. The confidence you're waiting for, it's on the other side of the thing you're afraid to do. And I get it. It's so easy to wait, to stay in the planning stage, the research phase, to keep telling yourself, I just need a little more time. But that a little more time is fear dressed up in a nice outfit. It's trying to keep you in a loop. So here's the moment, right now. Ask yourself, what's the thing you keep putting off? The conversation, the decision, the leap? What would happen if you did it scared, not recklessly, not without thought, but with the knowledge that fear isn't a stop sign? It's a sign that you're stretching. You don't have to be loud or bold or even certain. You just have to be willing to take one step, willing to let your fear walk beside you without steering your life, willing to bet on yourself, even when your voice trembles. That's what fearlessness really is, not the absence of fear, but the refusal to let it shrink you. So when fear shows up next time, and it will, don't try to silence it. Don't fight it, just nod, acknowledge it, and keep walking, because fear is a guest, but you're the one building the house. Have you ever felt like life just doesn't make sense? Like the dots aren't connecting the way they should? You've done the work. You've shown up. You've tried your best. And still, things fall apart. Or worse, nothing happens at all. And you're left wondering, what's the point of all this? Ted. It's easy in those moments to start believing you're on the outside of something, like everyone else is in on some master plan, and you're just out here, ad-libbing your life. But what if I told you? You're not separate from the rhythm. You're not offbeat. You're not a mistake. You're not being punished. You're part of something bigger, something wider, deeper, more intricate than anything you can fully grasp right now. You're part of a symphony. Now, I know that sounds poetic and abstract, but hang with me. Because the truth is, life is always moving, even when it's quiet, even when it's messy. Even when it's falling apart in your hands. And like a great piece of music, it's not meant to make sense all at once. Think about a symphony. Not every note is beautiful on its own. Some are dissonant. Some sound like tension. Some hang in the air unresolved. But when you zoom out, when you hear the whole thing, beginning to end, every note has a place. Every pause has a purpose. Every silence, every swell, every crash matters. It's the same with your life. We're so quick to judge the season we're in. This part hurts, so it must be wrong. This chapter is unclear, so I must be lost. This didn't work out, so I must have failed. But what if the parts you're questioning are exactly the ones you'll look back on and say, that's where it all started to come together. What if the silence wasn't absence? It was the space being cleared so you could actually hear yourself. What if the loss wasn't rejection? It was redirection. What if the pain wasn't punishment? It was preparation. It's wild how often the worst moments in our lives end up being the foundation for everything good that follows. But we don't see it when we're in it. We can't. Because transformation never feels like transformation while it's happening. It feels like chaos. It feels like being stretched and cracked open, but underneath it all, something's shifting. Something's taking shape. You may not be able to see it, but you can feel it. Somewhere deep down, that ache that says, there's more for me, that whisper that says, this isn't the end. That flicker of hope that refuses to die, no matter how tired you get. That's not delusion. That's alignment trying to catch up with you. And that feeling, that's how you know you're still in the music. Even if it doesn't sound like what you thought, even if it's not the key you hoped for, even if it's slower, louder, darker, quieter than you imagined, you're still part of it. You're not behind. You're not broken. You haven't missed your moment. You are the moment. Your life right now is a living, breathing piece of the larger movement. And when you start trusting that, really trusting it, it changes the way you move through the hard parts. It doesn't make them easy, but it gives them meaning. You stop fighting the silence. You stop rushing the process. You start listening, learning, leaning in, because you begin to realize this isn't happening to you. It's happening through you. And that's when you stop chasing someone else's path and start owning your own. That's when the fear loosens its grip. That's when the waiting becomes sacred. That's when your flaws become features in the design. Not separate, not mistakes, not burdens, just pieces of the melody. So no, your story isn't supposed to look like anyone else's. It's not supposed to unfold on a timeline that makes sense to your brain. That's not how symphonies are written. And it's not how you're being written either. You're not a background track. You're not filler noise. You're a main theme. And when the timing is right, when the cue comes, you'll feel it, the rise, the clarity, the swell, and suddenly all the dissonance, all the pauses, all the parts that felt random or cruel or pointless, they'll start to harmonize. So don't pull away when it gets hard to understand. Don't silence your heart when it starts to beat differently. And don't ever forget, you're not separate from the music. You are the music. Let's talk about courage. Not the big movie scene courage with trumpets and applause, but the quiet, everyday kind. The kind that isn't about heroic acts or grand gestures. It's the kind of courage that lives in the small decisions you make every single day. Because here's what most people don't realize. Courage isn't a feeling. It's a choice. You don't wait around until you feel brave to move forward. You move forward and the courage shows up. Think about that for a second. We spend so much time waiting for the perfect moment. The moment when fear disappears, when the doubt is gone, when the conditions are just right. But the truth is, those moments rarely come. Instead, courage is about stepping into the discomfort, the uncertainty, the messy middle. It's about saying yes, even when your voice shakes. It's about showing up even when the outcome is unclear. It's about being willing to be flawed and failed and fearless all at once. Courage is the daily grind of getting up and trying again and trying again. It's the willingness to be vulnerable, to risk rejection, to face your insecurities head on. It's the muscle that grows stronger the more you use it. Here's something I want you to hold on to. The path to success isn't paved with flawless moments. It's paved with courage. Because every success story you admire, every breakthrough, every triumph has courage at its foundation. The courage to fail, to fall, to get back up. The courage to be imperfect and keep going anyway. And the beautiful part? You don't have to be fearless to be courageous. You just have to be willing to face your fears, not avoid them. Willing to take that first step, even if the rest of the path is blurry. Willing to trust yourself enough to keep moving forward, one brave choice at a time. That's the real path to success, the path that's flawed, failed, and fearless all at once. So next time you doubt yourself or hesitate because of fear, remember this. Courage isn't about the absence of fear. It's about moving forward despite it. And every time you choose courage, you're rewriting your story. You're proving to yourself and the world that you are stronger than your fears.